Here's Brody Brazil.
What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to this Wednesday edition of the live stream. The date here is important. It's December 16th, 2020, which means we're 5 days away from what is supposed to be the expiration of the ban on sports in Santa Clara County. Now, look, this is something they laid out a while back. It's something I completely understand considering the time circumstances, considering the stats, the numbers around our country, and the numbers locally of where things are going during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I also understand the fear that specifically sports, you get people together, you get contact. Not just that, you get travel, you get fans. There's a whole lot more to this than the actual games themselves. So I want to state that I fully understand what was initially here laid out. But now comes the question, we're 5 days away, and the ban on professional and amateur sports of close contact, will it actually come to an end? And if it doesn't, how does that impact teams? And not necessarily like the 49ers, who have already moved out of town. They're in Arizona doing their thing, playing road games as home games, or like San Jose State, which, by the way, congratulations to the Spartans on the undefeated season they're having right now. But they're in Las Vegas. They've made that their new home, away from San Jose. In fact, they recently flew to Hawaii to play the U of H. Instead of Hawaii was supposed to initially come to California, they flat out went to Hawaii because they had to. So this is creating a whole lot of alternate plans, and later on, I'll focus on what the San Jose Sharks are dealing with right now. They're probably going to be starting up another season soon, and what is there, like plan A, plan B, plan C? I mean, optimally, they would love to be where they're at and not have to move an entire franchise and equipment and have players be relocated and the inconveniences of families and being apart from them for months at a time. You can see how this can get messy quick. Again, I understand the bigger picture here. I understand the circumstances. We're still not out of this pandemic, and that is paramount, and you want to do all the right things. But I have an idea of how to kind of separate what's going on here. Maybe a game plan of how to make this a little more workable for everybody and in fact still get the results that the county is hoping to get out of this. And I actually want to go back here to what they put out. I mean, I'm not sure a lot of people are even, they're aware of maybe the situation, but not necessarily the language here in the statement that was put out. So this was effective November 28th and continuing until December 21st. Collegiate and professional athletic programs are allowed to operate only outdoors and only if athletes do not come within 6 feet of one another at any time. Now, I mean, just think about that for a second. Like, how many sports, maybe golf, I guess you could do golf that way, and you should be doing golf that way right now. Tennis, you could do it that way. But what I'm saying here is most sports that would happen during these winter months, it never allows you to have everybody spaced out 6 feet apart, and let alone a crowd that would want to come. And I'm talking here mostly about youth sports and amateur sports. Like, if a kid's going to have a game, your parents are going to be there congregating as well too. So back to this here real fast. So only if they operate outdoors and only if athletes do not come within 6 feet of each other at any time. For clarity, all athletic activities that involve close contact or proximity are prohibited during this time. Now, here's where we get into the next level of it. Any collegiate or professional athletic team or program that travels outside the county to engage in athletic activity prohibited in the county is prohibited from engaging in further athletic activity within Santa Clara County during this time period. So that directly relates to the 49ers. They just said, hey, we're moving. What the county is saying is you can't go out and play games elsewhere and then come back in. And San Jose State, same thing. They just flat out relocated. And I'm sure right now they're reassessing their plans, but it's easier for them because they had a little bit more time and they're already gone. So they don't need to worry so much about changes. Are they staying or will they be able to come back? And in reality, for both teams, there's only a short amount of their season left. I guess they might as well just stay where they're at. Let me close this out here. Any collegiate or professional athletic team or program that travels outside the county to engage in athletic activity allowed in the county must comply with the mandatory directive for travel. Okay, so I've spelled out all the language there, but again, we don't know if this is going to come to an end in 5 days or if it's going to continue. If you're asking me, I see the way the world is, I see the numbers, I see the tea leaves. I would have to imagine that for a certain period. Now, they did this for the holidays as well. I kind of understand that. If I'm a betting man, I would have to think, by not hearing anything at this point, that it's probably going to extend. Now, if you're the Sharks, right, like I said, you're relocating all of your games, all of your people, and you want to keep it to a small staff that would have to travel anyway. I've heard a lot of talks of Phoenix as a relocation, as Las Vegas as well as another option for this team. They have to find another landing spot, and this is not. And I've also heard this sentiment too from the general public and even fans. So what? This is not a big deal. Just go where you're supposed to do and do your job. But I would also tell you that to have to go away from home for a season and not know when you're going to even be able to come back, it's a mind game. Not only is it a risk that every player is taking to, play during a pandemic and try and stay safe and healthy through all this. I don't really care what a person's salary is, considering the events and the situation they're putting themselves in here. I know that compensation a lot of times is a big deal. It's a big thought about, well, you're making enough, so don't worry about it. There's just so much more at stake and to keep in mind on a personal level than a financial level in all of this. But my thought that I really want to get to for everything here about Santa Clara County, they put a ban on all sports. So we're talking everything from an NFL football player to an NHL hockey player to a D1 college football player to eventually, like I said, the Earthquakes are not in action right now, but an MLS soccer player, but also to a high school football player or a youth basketball player. And my point is that all these different levels of athletes and programs, they do not share the same level of resources and protocols and protections. For example, like the NHL and professional sports and football, and even what baseball did this past summer, they have testing and doctors and ways to circumnavigate the pandemic. Now, are they perfect? No. And do these teams also have the traveling aspect? Like, for example, are you going to welcome in a team that was just in 3 other cities in the last 2 weeks? Yeah, probably. So you are dealing with the element of bringing that into your city and having them oppose your players. So that is the one drawback. But my point here is you can't just blanket sports top to bottom and say that these 4 teams, for example, are at the same level as like youth sports. And you can't say that youth sports by any means are at the same level of these teams and what they're able to do to play through a pandemic. And yeah, I get it. This is business. These teams are about business and other teams are about the recreation and the physical and mental outlet of human beings. I do get that. What I'm trying to say here is, as this all expires on December 21st, a way to see through this would be to make, and I don't want to say exceptions because that sounds fishy, that sounds sneaky. It would be to alter these rules, right? So if you want to keep the ban on amateur sports, if you want to keep the ban on youth and high school programs that just simply cannot compete from a safety standard with what the pros are doing, then that's fine. And if you can find a way to let these teams do their thing, I don't know how much of an effect, how much worse these teams individually will make the overall health situation in Santa Clara County. And by the way, we're not talking about fans at games here, right? Let's put that all aside. I don't think that's happening in the immediate future in our state at all. Okay? I'm just talking about the safety of the actual athletes on the field and the potential spread that they could create by just being in the same location. So all of this, unfortunate. Again, I respect and I recognize the contributions of health officials and what teams are trying to do. I know right now that internally with the Sharks, they're quite frustrated. They don't have necessarily say on what the league is doing and how fast they're trying to ramp up. They don't have a whole lot of say in what the county is going to restrict them from doing. They're out there exploring other options. I mean, try, like I said, moving all of your people and your things during this situation. It's not necessarily easy at all. So, like I said, is this expiring in 5 days? Probably not. And would it be best to maybe separate professional and amateur sports in the next round of restrictions? Yes, I think it would probably make a lot of sense. I'll close it with this. I've been on social media seeing that high school basketball games are happening around our country, in enclosed gymnasiums, and the scene. It's live streamed on Facebook or whatever, Twitter or Periscope or whatever. That's happening right now, really. So I understand, and it would happen here in California too if there weren't necessarily certain rules against it. It would happen in certain places. I just think it's important to have a one uniform standard, make it very clear what's off the table. But like I said, to also separate these layers of sports. Professional and amateur sports, I know they're sports, but two totally different beasts, especially in a time like this. Thanks for joining me here on the live stream today. Really appreciate it. If I can, leave you with this. Hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, your comments, your feedback. Really do appreciate that. Also, check out the podcast. It's available right now on Apple, Spotify, Google Play. I've got some interviews with Sharks players, A's players. Always throwing up something new there on the podcast. So until next time, everybody be safe. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you later.